Here we go. You are live, he says, looking downwards and checking his screen like he always does at the beginning of these things. Fingers crossed. LinkedIn will catch up in a minute. Morning, everybody. Welcome to the Team Huddle. Yeah, we're good on LinkedIn. It's me, and I'm not alone this week. Tasha's off with clients, doing amazing stuff with clients today. I've already had photos from the Shard showing off in a glamorous location. But David Howell's, a good friend of mine, has joined us. I know I've done some of these team huddles on my own, but it's a team huddle, and a team of one is still a team, but it's more fun when there's other people to talk around and bounce off. So yeah, thank you for taking the time to come and chat, Dave.
No problem. We couldn't leave you alone, unaccompanied.
Looking all lonesome and sad on my own. And it's
Yes.
just amazing. As much as I like to talk, there comes a point where it's kind of, I'm running out of things to say.
Yes.
I've noticed I go a lot faster when I'm on my own. I talk fast anyway. It's kind of a trait, but when I'm on my own, I talk a lot faster.
Yes.
I make a conscious effort to slow down.
That's it.
Be more on point today.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks for joining, mate. I know we caught up yesterday and chatted and thought this would be a good thing to bring to more audience. We didn't go into detail yesterday, but we were kind of talking about change and all the fun and games.
Yeah.
Not just we were chatting just before this, not specifically the theory. I'm sure we'll touch on things like change curves and all that kind of stuff, but actually the implications and consequences and reality of change on people's lives, I suppose, not just work, but on their lives, and how this kind of whole of life concept comes into it. So I'm sure we'll get into stuff, but you've been through a fair bit of change over the years, as has everybody. But
yeah, quite unique change as well. But what I always say to people, it's individual. Everybody deals with change differently, and that's, for me, this is the cliche, but that journey I've been through is that understanding of where people sit within that change and respecting it and trying to understand and bring context to the individual. And it's fascinating because it's people, time and time again. It's what we come down to. The bottom line, it's people. And if we don't understand them, then we set change off on the wrong course, should we say. So, but yeah, we'll sort of touch on that and some of the change events and projects that were intended or unintended as well that happen.
And there's always unintended, isn't there? I think this is that kind of thing about changes. Well, we'll do this and this will happen. And if you're lucky, this might happen, but rarely does it happen in exactly the way you expect it to.
Yeah.
And I think that, so many words you mentioned there that stood out: context, people, consequences. And it's this kind of, I don't know about you, but certainly, particularly in my corporate career, the focus of change was about the thing that was being changed, the process or the system or the methodology or the tool. That was where all the attention, all the energy went. And that was where usually the problems were seen. Always, you just need to get used to it. You need to get get trained in it. You need to see it for what it can bring. You need to highlight the problems. It becomes about the thing. And it's not. I love that word, context. It's about your unique individual response to the thing. It's about the emotion, the people element, and how that thing impacts you. And that word, I get carried away with the word context, but you said at the beginning, it's how individuals respond to change. I'd go even further and say it's how individuals respond to change right here, right now. How you respond to change will be different the next time something changes, and different again. And we kind of think that we have to build, I'm going over the plot here, but this kind of build resilience to change and you will be fine. And actually, well, it's different. I'm in a different place. The change is different. I'm thinking differently. Different things have happened to me the next time stuff happens. I was chatting with a client yesterday who is incredibly successful in their job, loves their job, constantly pushing, constantly evolving what's going on with her and her team, and has hit that point in that job where there's this huge wave of change coming in terms of the organization set up around her team, but also her team shifting the roles they do, and they're all dead excited. And there's some resistance, there's some interesting stuff going on.
Yeah.
And normally she'd be, this is it. This is what I was born to do. and there's something major going on at home.
Yes,
Something
absolutely.
absolutely major going on
Yeah,
at home.
yeah.
Well, her energy, her attention on what's going on at work has come to that point where that realization of, you know what, I haven't got the energy to deal with this
Mhm.
right now. Any
No,
other time, she'd be the one driving it. She'd be the one, yeah. But right
yeah,
here and right now, no, what's going on
yeah,
at home needs 99% of her
yeah.
attention, her energy, her love, her emotion, all that stuff. And so not ignoring the change, but actually coming to terms, coming for her personally to come to peace with the fact that's okay.
Mm,
I'm not expected to be the one. If I'm open about this, I can't be the one who's immersed in this, driving this. Yeah. I can't be that person right now. I have to
yeah,
be that over here.
yeah. Then
At home.
there's and that creates problems. That creates problems in terms of the behavior that is exuded from that person, because they're looking to that person to drive it forward. But what they portray, or what they want to portray, can be different things. And this is where we need to get to that self-awareness, and what we call it is that an initial condition sensitivity. When you come to do that project, and those expectations that come with it to drive it forward and to achieve the end result, and whatever that success looks like at the end. And there's a contentious issue to start with. What is success? That's another point that I've picked up over the years, because we talk the same language, but we don't talk the same language.
Yeah.
What is success? Anyway, that's another thing. But what is that initial condition sensitivity? And you can't take away home out of the equation. So, and we tend to forget as well, and I found this as well, is that, yeah, we've got this project, we're going to go from A to B to C to D, and it'll be fantastic on the end. It'll bring these wholesale benefits. It'll change how we work. It'll make life easier, customers, etc., etc. But that's one element of change. What's going on in their individual not isolated world, but individual world, other change that's going on. I know we've touched on the kind of change curve, but you could be on that change curve in so many different locations for so many different changes. You might be on denial for one element. You might be upbeat and on the upward curve for this project that's the focus. You might have bereavement, illness, all these equations, family at school, university, you name it. It's all going on. That's life. That's life kind of going on there. So trying to roll it up and focusing on that one thing that's for the organization is the most important thing. There's that lack of awareness of where that person sits. And as you rightly say, are they the right person for the right role at that time? And I think probably something we touched on yesterday is that we've got a project team. We're going to overlay that project team onto this project because they were fantastic on this project over here. That's all well and good, but are they? How do we find out that insight to say, yes, they were fantastic over there? And it might have just been luck. And this is sometimes we forget about, just serendipity, that the right people with the right ability to deal with the complexity of the project came together at the right time. And if anybody's read Turn the Ship Around by David Marquette, and the nuclear submarine, that was pure serendipity. And they went away and thought, we've done it, we've cracked it. We know how to lead, we know how to manage, we know how to give people autonomy to carry out the roles without that command and control structure. But they've never been able to replicate it again. In any ship or any boat or submarine, never. So what is that missing link? And that's that, it's a bit cliche, that journey I've kind of found myself on with fantastic people around the world, actually, to bring that understanding of the individual and where they are placed at that moment in time that an initial project starts, and whatever it is. And it's that initial condition sensitivity that we need to focus on and understand and appreciate. And it's a way of slowing down to speed up.
Yeah,
if you get things right at the start, and there's a great thing I learned, which is mise en place, which is it's French, strange enough. That's the only French I know. But it's a cooking term, and the analogy that I use is that you look in your recipe book, you find a fantastic recipe that you want to cook. It's a special occasion. What utensils do I need? How much time do I need? Have I got the right skills to actually perform and make that recipe so it looks like the picture in the book, because they're always fantastic, aren't they, in the recipe book? And
Yeah.
I want it to look like that. Very, very rarely it is. There's that drift, isn't there, between you cooking it and it actually coming out the oven. But if we spend the time there, the utensils, do I need some extra help actually to spend some time and talk me through some of the processes of the cooking? What ingredients do I need? It's no good getting halfway through and find out you've missed one of the ingredients, so you've got to go out and shop for it, because that throws it out of kilter and you're not going to get the end result. So by slowing down, understanding who you've got, all the ingredients there, then we'll start the project. And we so often just jump into these things. Oh, that's a great idea, let's do it. My time in the police service was on my latter year was as business change manager for digital transformation, and it's not just the police. I'm sure it's organisations everywhere. Is that, oh, let's set up a project team, and you've probably been through this as well. Okay, we need somebody from each of the departments to build this platform that we're building and developing with the provider. We want your best people to help with this because it's that important. The departments don't send their best people. They send the people that are coming up to retirement, one that they can afford to lose because they want to keep their best people to help the department, because the leader in that silo, that department, wants it to function as best it can. So why am I going to give my best people away? I'll give you people that have been off on stress for the last few months and they can help, and it'll be an easier life for them. No, it won't. It'll be even worse. And we're putting these people into a disparate team without any understanding of who they are, how they're going to react. And we come back to that ability to deal with complexity, because projects are complex things. You need that overview. So you need to operate in that complexity envelope, not in the simple, not in the complicated, that complexity envelope. So yes, you've got your experts and they'll bring you the information and the data, but somebody's got to have that 360 view of what's going on. And I appreciate you over there. You're doing a fantastic job, but on this occasion, we need to go with this or this and make those decisions, which is probably more your realm, I think, isn't it, with the IT side of things and how you build those teams to bring about change.
I think, what you're saying is essentially people come into teams with baggage, and that's not bad. That's not good. That's reality.
Yeah.
And finding ways to acknowledge that, talk about that, see what that means. And, this isn't one about safety and all that kind of stuff about, having an environment to be able to do that stuff. But actually, you've got to, because it's going to have an impact on the change, on the success of the change, whatever. Again, not going down the rabbit hole of what definitions of good and all that kind of stuff are like. But that's true at any point. I guess that's true at any point in a team's life cycle. So a lot of teams I work with tend to be agile teams. So work, the project we come together to deliver improvements to this area, whether that's software or something else. But even so, there's still quite often an assumption that you will go into, let's say they work in weekly sprints, you will go into each weekly sprint in the way that you came out of the last sprint. So there's the kind of work thing. Well, we did our retrospective and we learned this and we're going to apply that. But actually, again, as a rounded human being, you'll be coming out of that sprint and going into the next one with different baggage. It may be a subtle tweak. It may be a major tweak. It may have happened in the middle of the sprint or at some weird time, but there is change constantly going on, and having the structures, the rituals, the trust to be able to see that and acknowledge that, and then have a discussion about, what does that mean? What does it mean that actually you want to retire in 6 months' time, and this project's actually going to take this to succeed at this is going to take 12 months? What does that mean? What does it mean that actually you're the most competent person in this team? What does that mean? Oh, it means I'm actually doing 2 jobs because I'm still doing work for the other team. But don't worry about that. I'll manage it. What does it mean? What's going on with you? And how can we help? How can we help?
And appreciate it. And it comes again down to self-awareness and self-managing. If we can get to that point, that would be fantastic. And touching on that retirement, that happened within a project I was dealing with. The stakeholder had another job to go to. Part of the IT providing arm of it was kind of divorcing from the company as well, that provider. So all these impacts have on actually pressing the go button, and is it the right reason? And I found, and this is the kind of the post-implementation report I did, that so much was reliant on luck. It wasn't science. It wasn't understanding of the individual or the people on the front line who were actually going to have the biggest impact on the overall project. It was those other strands and those other pressures that were having an impact on the go live date. And again, what does success look like? Those people on the project, their contracts were going to finish on that date, a week or so after it went live, and they'd gone. So what's their interest and passion and resilience to some of the things that went on? What was that impact on that? And then they just left this product after the go live date with the people who then have got to live with it for years and years and years. And this is where we get that drift as well, that the organization is sold a product in terms of, say, digital transformation, and they get this picture at the end, but where does it kind of drop and droop down from the end expectation, again, success, to how it is actually lived with? And a lot of the workarounds and problems and issues faced as a result, because it never starts here and goes on a linear course to the end, and wow, thanks goodness for that, it's wonderful, and it ticks all the boxes that we try to kind of cover off at the front of the project. It disappears down here somewhere potentially. But again, coming back to that initial time to get it right and understand it, and where the organization is in terms of its maturity, and have this, what we talk about is a fluid risk matrix, which is what you're talking about in kind of the team aspect, is who are the right people to go in, and let's monitor them, because there's mental health in there as well. And I've seen people, I'm sure you have, broken, and as a result of it, mentally and physically, because of projects, because we don't understand the individual and how they play such a major part in it.
That's a really important point, that kind of when either going through change, leading change, I certainly think we've got better, the royal we, generalizing here, but organizations have got cleverer, more savvy at, like you said, managing risks, managing particularly tangible risks. So, okay, maybe there's a contract issue here, or there's a testing issue here, or there's things that are part of the process. The people aspects, the emotional aspects, I think, going back to what you said about luck, what's interesting is we rely on those things when the proverbial hits the fan. We'll lean into the people, we'll play on the emotions, we'll hope that people are committed enough, they've got the courage to stand up and do what's necessary and stay, and they've got the resilience to stay up all night and do this sort of stuff. But we don't deal with that stuff early. We don't, when we've got the time and the space, when you can, I've worked with teams where it's quite obvious that there are going to be struggles here. What we'll do is we'll have the hard conversation at 2:00 in the morning, when we can say, you need it. It's a black and white thing. And I think that's quite often what's scary about change for organizations is, I don't know what I'm going to do when somebody says I'm struggling or I'm ecstatic or whatever, when somebody raises the emotional element of where they are on one of their many aspects of various changes and etc., I don't know what to do. And it's quite interesting. It's actually, well, why are you putting yourself under pressure to solve that, to identify it, to understand it, to analyze it, to solve it, to test that solution and implement that solution? You wouldn't do that for a thing, in one go. Why are you expecting to have to do that for a human being? Start with that kind of, so what we all thinking today? What we all feeling today? How's it going? As a team, as individuals. And I see that conflict quite often, particularly with leaders, where, well, we're a team. We will stand together and we will fall together, which is great, which is awesome. But within the team are individuals, as you said right at the beginning. And there's a real struggle with team versus individuals, and it's not versus. It's not a contradiction, it's a complement. If you can see everybody as individuals, yet see the whole unit and where it's stretched, where it's succeeding, where it's struggling, where it's failing, where it's doing brilliant things. Once you can see that, you can start to piece together the individual parts, and you can see, if you're a team member, you can see where you need some support, where there's a gap, and then you can start saying, what do we do about this? That's where the team helps, is in the identifying the solution. The individuals are about, this is what I'm thinking, this is what I'm feeling, this is what I want. The team then comes together to say, okay, how can we help with that?
Yeah. And that conflict, as you rightly say, and this is the work that we've been doing in some of the team building team exercises, and using that Q23, just the short Q23 questions is, and again, an analogy, you've got your board of 10 people, your project team of 10 people, they're all agreeing on the outside and patting each other on the back, shaking hands and smiling. What's going on underneath when they leave that room to go and do the work? And what experiences are they going through as well? And that's the key thing. And when conflict arises, it's got to be non-judgmental. I'm adamant about that it's not a case of pointing fingers. Okay, you're struggling. How do we change that? How do we change the experience for you? How do you actually get you to experience success? Do you need some help? Do you need somebody just to ask the right question at the right time? Because we do speak less about the things that need talking about the most, and they're under the surface, and that's how we get to that conflict, unfortunately. And we can see it now. That's the beauty of the tools we're using. We can see where that conflict is going to arise. You said that in the projects we're having conversations at 2 o'clock in the morning. Should that be the case? And are you at the best time to make a decision after you've worked 12 hours and you've been kind of pulling your hair out trying to get a solution, and you come up with a solution, but is it the best one? And are people, and this is what we found certainly in the police service, some of the assessments we're doing, people are willing to make sacrifices to get the job done. And is that the right thing to be doing? Should we be sacrificing? And normally that comes at a price to home life or social life or other relationships out of that work environment. That shouldn't really be the case, because that's going to build in burnout, and it's going to build in mental health issues and issues at home. And the maladaptive practices that some people do actually get to in terms of their mental health. So we need to have these conversations. It's getting to that root cause of the problem, basically. And until we start looking at people in the round, in holistic look at them, and how do they deal with that role? Or have they got the right innate talent, complexity, potential to deal with that role and keep them safe as a consequence? And until we go down to that foundation that they build on and understand it, appreciate it, and have that self-awareness, then we're always going to build in failure. And that risk matrix that we need to have to monitor and look after people isn't there, because we just, and this is the term I use a lot of the time, is throwing darts in the dark. It is. And that's that serendipity coming out as well again, isn't it? It's I think I've seen this before, so we'll do that. But what's the risk? What's the change of risk on this occasion? Going back to that, the same team, there's been a fantastic project team. We're going to use them for this project as well. But why did they get a different result after it? What was different between project A and project B? What changed to those people in the meantime there? And it's fascinating, because it's people.
It's. I think I'm likely to get a reputation for taking a metaphor and analogy and stretching it as far as I can.
Go for it.
But it's that, I love that throwing darts in the dark. But if we take that a step further, it's like, it's not about switching the lights on so that you can see the target and throw it. It's actually switching the lights on. That's it. What can you see when you switch the lights on? Is the person who's throwing the darts handshaking? Are they facing the wrong way? How are they holding their body? How do they look? What's going on with the dart? Is it a dart? It's a javelin. Are they holding nothing and they think they're throwing something? It's okay. It's that taking an interest in the experience of change. I think the whole experience of change, going full circle to where you started, is individual, it's unique, it's contextual.
Yeah.
And just being aware of that, switching on to that, to take your analogy of just switching the lights on, is a great step. It will not give you all the answers, but it's a great step. It's a scary step because you will see things that, well, when it was dark, I could just, like you said, I could just hope the dart hit the board.
Yeah.
Whereas now I've switched the lights on, I know it's not going to hit the dartboard.
Yeah, because you take it even further. You look at your eyesight and hand-eye coordination, and everybody is different. And just taking it a step forward as well is that certainly the project I'll refer to is that there's risk within. You think you're doing the right thing by getting change agents in who are going to kind of help with the change and promote it and communicate it. They're a risk if you don't know who they are, because they might be doing it for any number of reasons. The stakeholder themselves, what's in it for them, should we say? Why are they doing it? Is it just another line on the CV to say, I've seen this through? Have they got the complexity to deal with it? The project team, the trainers, we brought in a lot of outside trainers who were, if you look at it in terms of a war, were mercenary. They came in, they were given what to actually deliver. They delivered it and went home and took their pay packet. But if they're not on the same level as the people that are coming in terms of the frontline staff, there's conflict there. Well, you could get somebody in the group of theirs. They could come from the front line of policing and say, well, that's all well and good, but what happens if I do this? Because that reflects on my world out there, the real reality world. Well, I don't know. I've only been told to kind of deliver this. So they go away disillusioned that actually, I don't think this is going to work because it doesn't actually reflect what I do on the front line at 2 o'clock in the morning, when I'm on a Saturday night, when there's lots of abuse going on, violence, you name it, and I've got to then do this report. How does that work? And the trainer, as good as they want to be, or as empathetic as they want to be, haven't got the solutions. So that fluid risk matrix goes through the whole project, literally the whole project. So it, as we say, you've got the system of delivering the project and what you want to encompass in it and deliver. When you drop that blanket of people on top of it, where are the spikes, where are the problems going to occur, who's not aligned to the right job, be it trainer, stakeholder, project team, and also the front line. We need to understand what's going on there. How are they in the right place to receive this change? Because if they're not, and they're in a bad place, and certainly within policing, we see that as well. We hear a lot of the morale that's quite low, reduced resources, a lot of burnout that we've seen in terms of the assessments we've done. Adding another layer of complexity in terms of another change, is this the right time? No matter how much it's going to cost, is it the right time to deliver it? And we forget about that as well. We've got to deliver it because somebody's head's on the line up here and they want it and they see it's nice and shiny and it's the latest thing off the shelf and we're going to have it. What other change we've been through previous to that we're still getting over? And one, I'll shut up in a second, but one interesting thing was there was a question asked of how many change projects were on the go in a certain police force at the same time, and people guessed, and I think it came out of about 70 to 100 different change projects were on the go at the same time. Not all of them in synergy, because one change might affect another one and they weren't aware of it. But the comment that struck me was, those are the projects that we are aware of, which is frightening in itself. So what else is going on? What else is going on within that force that might have a detrimental or positive effect on the projects that you've already, or that you're aware of? And that's quite frightening, really. So.
I remember, and I look back on it with fascination amongst other emotions now.
Yeah.
But certainly in my corporate days, I remember chatting to a lot of directors as they come into the company and say, okay, so the IT department, how often do you release updates, improvements to the software? Because a lot of our software is in-house. Is it monthly? Is it quarterly? And no, it's daily. What do you mean daily? We release patches, upgrades, system improvements every day. which is crazy now thinking about it. And we were at that point, at various points, we were moving to a weekly kind of sprint adoption. This was before DevOps and all that kind of stuff was trendy. But we were releasing stuff daily. We built a culture, a kind of a pride around it's ready to go, it's ready to go, it's ready to go, it's ready to go. And we had a huge team that dealt with that. Testing was kind of, we'll test in live, all that kind of stuff. And it was fascinating to see people's response to the implications of change at that pace.
Yes.
And the reality is, even though we were trying to, we moved to a more steady cadence of releases, and we still weekly, which is still fast, but manageable. Change does happen, even if you've got change happens quickly. Even if you've got a project of months and years, there's still a lot of change going on every day, every week, every month, in terms of understanding, in terms of direction, in terms of testing, implementations, whatever kind of industry you're in. So this kind of we'll sort it out down the line kind of mental, or we'll ignore it until it becomes an issue. Is nonsensical, because change is still happening. When you kind of put something off, something still happens with it. Something's still going on. And I think I said to you yesterday, and I've still not found it. There was a quote. If anybody knows this quote, please let me know. But I'm pretty certain it was by Google, somebody who worked at Google. But it was along the lines of, it was a flip on the things are only going to get busier, and it was, you will never be as quiet as you are now.
With that complexity.
And this was before things like global pandemics and various other things threw things into the mix. So the way society is going, not just organizations, not just work, but the way society is going, everything is getting, there's more, faster, expectations are higher, money is an issue, all sorts of complicating factors that are only getting harder and more pressurized. It means change is only going to there's only going to be more change we're going to have to deal with. And so just recognizing it's not about the change itself, it's about how we respond to those changes. Again, broken record. And acknowledging that as early as possible, taking the pressure off you to fix it, to just raise it and work with it, has got to be the way forward. And when I've seen it done that way, when I've been part of a team that's kind of more open about what's going on, it does mean that things get delivered better. It does mean that occasionally something might be later, or there's a compromise made. But in the beyond that term, beyond that deliverable, so it may be, okay, you know what, this sprint, we're not going to get in what we thought. But that sets you up. If done for the right reasons, it sets you up better for the next sprint and the next sprint, because it builds that team spirit. It builds that understanding. It builds that capability to approach these things earlier, and you improve rather than, which again, going back to your point about bringing people into teams, right? What we need to do is replace you with somebody else because they'll work faster. You've still got the same challenges. The understanding's not there. The emotional appreciation is not there. You've still got the same challenges. You've got somebody who's maybe more technically capable right here and right now. It doesn't mean that that's going to sustain. And so building that spirit is really important.
Yeah. And that one person in or out of a team might have a huge effect, positive or negative, on that team if you don't know who they are and you don't know how they're going to fit in. So it's having that insight.
Another change, isn't it? It's another change. Another change has impacted the team, and everybody on the team will go into that change at a different point. Some people will be, yay, they've gone. Other people will be like, oh no, they've gone. Other people will be like, there's something different. There's something different. What's different? So yeah, it's another change. And it's not that you should minimize change. What we need to do, and it's not that, sorry, just something's just come up in terms of, I hear a lot and get asked a lot about, well, can you help us be more resilient to change? And the language fascinates me. I remember going on a course, again, back in the corporate days, about becoming bulletproof. That was the name of the change course, becoming bulletproof. And I remember before I went in there saying, shouldn't we be looking at why somebody firing bullets at me? Why do I have to become bulletproof? Shouldn't they stop firing? Again, stretching the analogy further than it needs to.
Yeah, it needs it.
That's the problem. Isn't that the solution? Isn't make me bulletproof. It isn't about me improving my resilience. It's about, why do I need to be more resilient?
Yeah.
Why do I need to be bulletproof? surely we should be looking at, again, go back to your point, the root causes of what's going on here.
Yeah. And that touches on being proactive rather than reactive. And again, that slowing down to speed up and knowing the individual, knowing what they've got to offer in terms of complexity. And another point, just picking up on it, I vividly remember that the project I've been kind of touching on being put back. The go live date was put back several weeks, and we were brought into the room to be told by the project manager. He was a good guy, really good guy, and you could feel the emotion in the room. There's almost tears to say thank goodness for that. And he appreciated that if he'd carry on with the deadline, the go live date that was set, he would have had broken people in front of him, literally broken people. And that's awful. And that's just not healthy. It's not productive. Success isn't going to happen, and the risks to people's health. And that's why we need to get to this proactive rather than reactive stance. What's happening before people know it? We can warn you about you're heading towards burnout if you don't. It's not major change in terms of people. It's knowing which strings to pull. And we found this with time and time again with the assessments we're doing with Junior and Fraser. And it's been remarkable. It's been enlightening. It's like my wife's just had 2 cataracts done. And I can feel it's like that. It's opening your eyes to, wow, yeah, there's that context again has opened my eyes. And you know my background in terms of aviation and police aviation and some of the negative conflicts that I went through there, and being able to appreciate and understand why the conflict ensued, my part in it as well as theirs, and you can't get away from that, has helped me to heal. And that's a powerful thing. And also forgive, because until recently, probably say 2 years ago, that person was a figure of, hate's a very strong word, I don't like to use it, but it's certainly a figure of contempt. And how dare you do this to me and cause this to me? But that happens time and time again within projects. It builds, but we know where that conflict comes from, because it's that lack of understanding between people. And conflict should be a positive thing. There's so much can come out of conflict through a project, certainly, or through change, that you appreciate people, you have empathy with them, you have that context around what's going on in their lives as well as yours. And so much, and we're kind of going on to bullying now, but so much bullying, I wouldn't like to put a percentage on it, is down to miscommunication and misunderstanding of yourself and of the other person that you're doing battle with. That's a kind of a contentious word, but it sometimes feels like that to people. It's a battle, and the lines are drawn up, and I'm not going to give an inch or compromise. I'm going to go full blast, and I'm right and you're wrong. And it's that conflict that transpires due to situations like this. And back in the air support days, the National Police Air Service, and that was huge change for us. And people didn't realize it, probably, or didn't realize how much it was going to affect them in terms of the job that they were passionate about and loved, and the people around them they loved as well, because your life depended on it. And that was, on reflection, very poorly handled, because they didn't understand people. And again, in digital transformation, yes, there's the digital element, but the transformation is people. And so often we forget that transformation of people. And that's where we need to tip the balance in favor of the people here. Because if you get them on board, they've got the vision of where you want to take them. And also, you mustn't forget, in terms of that complexity level, where people sit. And the majority of people, we're looking at kind of 80%, sit in that simple element of how they deal with things. So they, as we spoke yesterday, they want a steady, stable livelihood. They want a nice family social life. They want to have a wage each month, which gives them hope. They see tomorrow, they understand tomorrow and where it is. I can go on holiday and I can have a nice car, or all these, I suppose, they are the kind of elements and results of success for them. They picture that. So how do we picture that in terms of change? That this change that's going to be not dropped on you, that's a sudden thing, but actually provided for you, is going to be successful, and where do you sit within that, and how does it affect your personal world? I kind of touched on yesterday, excuse me, just a team of people north of the county. We were looking at being moved to the south of the county. And through whatever reasons, operational, financial, efficiency, geographical reasons, a close-knit team in the north of the county were broken because of that decision. Nobody understood it, or nobody appreciated it. Because you look at, even though there's kind of, say there's 6 people on it, that's probably a little bit more, somebody was quite happy because they're going to get offered redundancy because they're at that point in their life that, oh, that's great, I've got redundancy, I can leave. I was going to leave in a year's time anyway, so it's just brought it forward. You have a young family who need the wage, live locally, the person can walk to work, they can pick the children up at night, they can't afford another car to drive the extra 50 miles, 100 miles a day, and that's a 2 hours on or extra to their working day. So that's causing huge angst for them. And you've got all these emotions going on. So once a very tight-knit team, which was in synergy, shall we say, and looked after each other, were at loggerheads.
Yeah.
Because they didn't appreciate what each one, because that outward portrayal as well in terms of behavior, well, I'm okay and that's fine, I'm not bothered, it'll be whatever, then winds up somebody who thinks, well, it's all right for you, you're in the right place, you can actually take that time to move south of the county, or you've got a car, you can spend that time. But what about me? I've got the family to look after here, I've got children to look after, I've got elderly parents I need to visit and look after. And we forget all that's in the mix, in the pot there, that's going on, reflecting from a subconscious point of view in terms of, is reflected in behaviors. And that lack of self-awareness and understanding is huge, absolutely huge, to a once fantastic team who worked and looked after each other and had a stable, because they weren't thrown into chaos, they weren't thrown into that unknown. And as soon as we throw people into that chaotic element, which very, very few, something like 1% of the public population can deal with, they're trying to look for solutions that aren't there for them. And they're trying to use solutions that might not be there because there's so many unknowns, as it were. And that's horrible for people. They can't cope with it because they like to be in that simple, uncomplicated world. I know where my wage is coming from. I know I can pay the mortgage. I know I can get to pick the kids up at night. I get on with the people around me and it's fine. That's nice and simple.
I think that kind of picture works whatever you see your lifestyle as, and I use that word intentionally, lifestyle, whether you see it as a continuation of what you've got or something better. We've all got those kind of aspirations for something. And when something comes along, which is happening more and more often, more regularly from all different dimensions, that makes it more likely or less likely that image will sustain or come true, we have a response to it.
Yeah.
Sometimes minimal, sometimes deep. And it's not, well, you can predict it based on geography and data. It's an emotional response. I'm sure there's some patterns, but generally speaking, I can say, you know, when my first child came along, 2 weeks of parental leave, and I was back into work. Second child came along, I should have followed that. You know, if you follow the pattern, that should have been all right. It was not. It was not.
Yeah.
Because I was in a different place. I was a different person. So, you know, you never know quite how people are going to respond. So again, just opening that up. And earlier, you know, you can question whether in that situation you've just described, what's the answer? Is it support? Is there a different way of talking with the team? Is there a way of involving them? Again, I use that word intentionally, involving them in the impact that will have on their life. What tends to happen, particularly in big organizations, is people get shut out of the process. Well, the union's dealing with that, or HR are dealing with that. If you've got a problem, take it up with your manager. It becomes very process orientated rather than what will help. And I can't guarantee or promise, but just what will help. And what
Yeah.
was interesting about you talked about there, it's not just the relationship, it's not just a response to the change from the change team or the organization, it's the relationship with each other in the team. Like you said, well,
Huge.
suddenly, why? It's annoying me that they're so happy that this is happening.
Yes.
Used to get
Yeah.
on really well, and they're really happy about this, and I'm not.
Yeah.
Having
Yeah.
been through, having seen a team of 250 odd people being outsourced,
Mm.
just every day, the emotional response different, and
Yes.
just with me, with directors, with the outsourcing team, with each other, with their boss, just
Yeah.
constantly evolving and changing.
Yeah.
And just respecting that
Yeah.
is
Understanding it. Yeah.
so important,
Yeah.
and just because it pays dividends. It will,
Huge.
talking with a client, it's like, well, want to help my team, but we're going through a restructure, so I'm not sure who will be in the team at the moment. So can we leave it until we've done the restructure? And kind of one of my responses is, well, how you go into this change sets the tone, not just for the people that will stay, not just for the people that will go, but
Mm.
for everybody that ever works with you in the future.
Yes.
If
Huge.
there's
Yeah.
this kind of accountancy kind of mind that's saying, well, if I'm going to have these three and not these five,
Yeah.
then I'll wait until those five have gone and a new five come along. Then
Mm.
you're just seeing things as beans. You're just
Yeah.
seeing things as assets, and these
Yeah.
are human beings. And you're not respecting your emotional part in that relationship, which
Yeah.
matters whether it's with these three people who might stay, with these five who are going, or anybody else that comes
Mm.
in. Start to retrain yourself in respecting that emotional aspect of the change that people are going through. It's
Yeah.
not a waste of time to support and help people that won't be in your team or may not be in your team in the future. And I see that so often in kind of this kind of being harsh, this kind of mercenary view of, I'm not wasting my time. It's not a waste of
No.
time. It's
No.
a positive, useful investment, because whatever understanding you create will lead you into the next change. And as we've said, this, take that example, that restructure will not be the last change. It's not the only change that those people in that team and the
Mm.
people around them are going through.
Yeah.
It's constant. And I don't
Yeah.
know about you, but organizations seem to go through, certainly once you get above like 200 people, what month is it? Right, restructure. It's a
Yes.
constant cycle. So that kind of
Yeah.
stuff never goes away. So being
Yeah.
able to respect and get emotionally involved in a safe way
Yeah.
is a really important skill.
Yeah. We see that in teaching. My wife's a teacher at primary school, and they're going through change. It's a case of put your preferences at the moment for next year. Which year group do you want to go in? It's change that has so many different ramifications dependent on which year you get. Are they the top level? Are they the ones that are coming in that are the rabbits in the headlights, that were the bright, fresh buttons that come in? And it affects on how she teaches, how she communicates with them, and everything else. And
It's a
it
great
starts
example,
there.
isn't it? Where
Yeah.
even if you look at that relationship with their customer, the kids, they're constantly changing, particularly
Mm-hmm.
at the age, whether
Yeah.
it's primary or secondary, or even college or university, they're constantly
Yeah.
changing.
It's
And you've
these
got their
feedback loops,
parents
isn't it?
and
Sorry,
sorry, go on.
they're a center of feedback loop.
Yeah.
The teacher, you, employee, whoever, that you put them at the center of a big flow chart. And there's all these pressures at home, work, government, health and safety, the children, media, social
Yeah.
media. And we don't picture that because it all happens perhaps at different times, but it's all on the go at the same time. It's all that pressure that's piling on. And going back to your point as well, that the world is getting ever more complicated. How do we deal with that complications and complexity that's evolving through things like technical and digital kind of transformation as well? Is it helping or is it hindering? And have we got has that transformation and change outstripped our ability to deal with it? And who are those people that can't deal with it or need extra support or are afraid? And this is a big thing we're finding at the moment, is people are desperate not to lose the jobs.
Yeah.
I cannot afford to lose this job. So going back to the change of location, they will make the sacrifices to move to that other job because they cannot afford to lose the wage. And I've saw this in empaths as well. And the police is a strange thing because you're always employed. So if you don't like this job, just go back on the beat. That was the kind of attitude. Well, this person's done it for 20 years, is the best at it, and you're going to lose so much, and you're going to have to recruit somebody else if they don't go there. So that's going to cost you £90,000 a pop to get somebody in by the time you've recruited and gone through all that process. And again, coming back to your point as well, in that restructuring of a team, how do we restructure as well? Is it on pure personality, performance, and skills? Or is there something deeper, which is what we're looking at, is those innate talents that allow you to do the job that's required? And there's so many avenues it could go, and it's fascinating. But change is so huge, and a lot of the time we don't appreciate what's happening to us as a person because of it. And one little thing for me is I've just gone through retirement. So finished 31 years in the police, 30 years, and then I did an extra year in the police service. I was a police officer. What's my identity now? And that's a huge change for somebody to change that identity. I'm now an ex-police officer. And where do those skills that I've learnt over those 30 years, thankfully I like to think I've got a few on the basis of the 30 years, certainly some experiences, to actually then evolve again into I'm only young, as you know.
Absolutely.
Colin. Yes, I'm going to age. But what have I got to offer? And how can I use that apprenticeship of the 30 years to then influence and change and make a difference for people in the future? Because that's what policing was. It's making a difference. So
back to that, that kind of the response to change is what you had in your head for 30 years was this image of this lifestyle, being a police officer, all these labels, all that kind of other stuff attached to it. And then that's not there anymore. Okay, so again, there's the likelihood of that lifestyle sustaining has been significantly impacted by change. And yes, there's choice involved in that. There's always choice involved in that. You can always stay or go. There's always implications of those kind of decisions, but it's still choice. It's about, okay, where can I feel like I can make a choice that will best help? The best choice I can make, not the right choice, not the perfect choice, but the best choice. And I think that's within change, helping people realize it's not about becoming bulletproof or resilient or anything like that. It's about how can you support them to see where they can make better choices through that process. Where can you help others do it? And you don't have to be in a leadership position or whatever. Particularly for me, coming back to the team, how can a team help each other to see what's going on and where they can make different choices that might help each other more? And it's not, I say this a lot, it's not easy, but neither is ignoring that. Throwing darts in the dark is not easy. It's not easy. So it's also not easy. It's easy to throw the dart, but it's not easy for that to be meaningful.
You don't know you don't know where you're going to hit.
No, could throw it in your foot for all you know. So it's not easy.
Yes.
And we kind of, doing it, embracing the emotional response to change is hard. Yes, it is hard, but so's not embracing the emotional response to change. They're both hard. They both put things at risk. They both cause things to be late, cause things to be more expensive. They both cause relationships to suffer. They both cause unfulfillment. But one, for me, has a greater potential for learning and improvement off the back of it, which is to lean into that kind of acceptance that change impacts people in different ways, and then say, okay, now I understand that. What can we do about that?
How do we change the experience? How do you understand it? And I was so fortunate to go through juniors psychometrics that I'm so passionate about now, and because it opened me up. It allowed me that time and space, again going back to that initial slowing down to speed up, that time and space to talk to myself, which I'd never done before, and the ability to reflect on past experiences and why they happened, why my actions were as they were, and how my behaviors were. And it's like having a new world open to you, and what were my preferences in dealing with things, and how did I deal with that level of complexity in any given situation? How did I adopt that ability to certain different situations? And it's fantastic because you feel yourself thinking around situations, which I love. I love kind of solving problems, and that was one thing that came out and being creative. But that can be could have been my Achilles heel. It got me bullied, basically, because I've got a solution. This is why we can do this. We can save money. We can save people's jobs, and they'll be happier when they come to work. And we've got a solution to this problem, which was appeared at first instance quite minor, but it would have lost half the workforce within the base managers. So by going full bore and saying and being excited and passionate about your solution caused me to be bullied, because the person I was trying to communicate it to didn't see that, saw me as a challenge, saw me as a threat. And from their level, how on earth can somebody at my level come up with a solution that I should have thought of? So there's your conflict. And I paid the price for it. But I can reflect back and say, yeah, partly my fault, and certainly partly their fault as well. And if we get to that point where I can have that psychological safety to put my hand up and say, I've got an idea. How about this? How about thinking about this for a second? And that person thinking, yeah, they might be a lower position, but this voice, that cognitive diversity that we need to adopt in that psychological safety could be the solution that actually portrays me in a fantastic light. Yes, it's their decision, but I'll take responsibility for it. That's okay, because I'm not interested in going up the ladder. I'm not interested in doing their job. What I'm interested in, and this you see in teams, I want to make it better for everybody. I want to make the organization better and more productive and help the public, which ultimately was all about. And we miss this unbelievable talent we've got at the root, the foundation of every organization, because of that fear and that challenge. And we haven't got that safety to speak up and listen down, should we say. So
I think that's a really good way to cap it off in terms of, I mean, I love there's probably a different conversation on assessments and psychometrics and and where they can really help as opposed to make things worse. But I think whatever it is, whatever you use, it boils down to a conversation. If you use insight to drive that, if you use curiosity, whatever it is, the way to make change more, to understand the experience of change in a more useful way, is to have conversations. There's no way getting around it. Tech isn't going to resolve this stuff. It's going to be human to human stuff. It's going to be about the relationships, and just deepening understanding comes through conversation. Sometimes leaning into them, sometimes leaning out of them, but flowing through conversations. It's, for me, you can put structure around it, you can put rituals around it, you can do all that kind of stuff to help, but it still boils down to talk more.
Yeah, because people,
and like you said, with yourself as well. It's a conversation. Sometimes it's that conversation with yourself as well that's important. There
comes out that emotional intelligence and when to shut up, when to listen.
There's a hint. There's a hint at 2 minutes to the hour. Very nicely done. Yeah, I will take that hint. And
is that called a segue?
I think that's called a segue into. Let's ease into the end of this. Into the end of this live, but we filled an hour with, and I'm sure we could have filled another hour. What we talked yesterday about it as well. So yeah, brilliant.
There was cake involved yesterday, though.
There was cake involved. That kind of fueled us through it, so it was good.
Yeah.
I should have brought. No, I had enough cake yesterday. Don't tempt me with more cake. Brilliant. Thoroughly enjoyed that. Okay. Hopefully it was useful. I think we touched on a fair few things. Hopefully the stories reached out to a few people as well. So yeah, thank you for joining us, David. I'm sure, I know we'll chat again, but it'd be good to do some other stuff as well. Have some more chats.
Undoubtedly. Yeah. Put some of this into practice and show it how it can be done, because it can be replicated, and we can look after people mentally and physically a lot better than we are doing.
No, definitely. People matter. It's a constant thread through this team huddle that pretty much all the answers are, lean into your people more.
And they're
don't lean on them more, lean into them more.
The answers are in the room. If you listen, are prepared to listen and understand and appreciate who's in the room.
I knew there was a reason we got on well. That and cake.
That's it.
All right, mate. Look after yourself.
And you.
Thank you for
Carl.
joining us, those who did, and speak to you all soon.
My pleasure.